Lyria had always known her life would be ordinary, or so she had believed. Living at the edge of the forest in the small village of Valen, she kept to herself, helping her mother with herbs and remedies, weaving clothes, and tending the modest home their family had occupied for generations. She avoided the woods after sunset. Superstition and whispered tales of creatures lurking beyond the tree line were enough to keep her cautious. But tonight, something felt different. The air was thick with tension, heavy and metallic. The full moon hung low, casting silver light across the trees and the village streets. Lyria's pulse quickened as a low growl echoed through the shadows. She froze. Something large moved between the trees, fast, graceful, undeniably alive. Her instincts screamed at her to run, but she couldn't. Not yet. The creature stepped into the clearing. It was a man, tall and broad-shouldered, with hair as dark as the midnight sky, and eyes that burned with a strange, unnatural gold. Even in the silver light, his presence seemed to bend it around him, drawing her gaze as if the forest itself acknowledged his dominion. He paused, nostrils flaring, scanning her like prey. And something else. He knew. Lyria's heart pounded, her body trembling. Who are you?" she asked. "I am Kalen," he said, his voice smooth, commanding and deadly. "King of the Lycan." The words seemed to echo from the trees themselves. I have no mate," she stammered, instinctively trying to put space between them. Kalen's eyes narrowed, and a growl rumbled deep in his chest. "No mate?" She shook her head. I've never been bound. I'm alone." His lips curved slightly, not in amusement, but in satisfaction. "Alone," he repeated, "until now." Before she could protest, before she could even think to run, he stepped forward. The air shifted, charged with the intensity of his power. Lyria could feel it, an invisible tether wrapping around her, tugging at her very soul. "You are mine," Kalen declared, his voice low but resonating through her body. "Not by choice, but by nature. The blood of your ancestors called me to you, and I have answered." Lyria's knees threatened to buckle. I can't." "Yes, you can," he interrupted, his eyes glowing brighter under the moonlight. "And you will, because your fate has been written long before tonight." The villagers, sensing the change in the forest, had locked their doors and bolted their windows. But Lyria was alone in the clearing, face to face with a force she had never imagined could exist. Kalen's presence pressed against her heart, his dominance undeniable, yet not violent. It was as if the very air whispered that resistance was futile, and yet tempting. "Why me?" she whispered, trying to keep her voice steady. Kalen stepped closer. "Because you were always meant to be my mate. The Lycan blood in you has long lain dormant, waiting for this night, waiting for me." Her eyes widened. "Mate? You mean—" "Yes," he said simply, and the word vibrated like a drumbeat in her chest. "You belong to me, as I belong to you. Reject it, and the bond will still take root. Accept it, and we will be bound in ways you cannot yet imagine." The forest around them seemed to lean in, the wind whispering secrets of old alliances and ancient promises. Lyria's mind raced. I don't even know what this means," she admitted. "I've never known anything like this." Kalen reached out, brushing a strand of wet hair from her face. The contact sent an electric shock through her, unbalancing her senses. "You will know. Soon enough. And when the time comes, you will understand why I claimed you." He circled her slowly, predatory and deliberate. "Some call this fate," he said, voice low. "Some call it destiny. I call it survival. The Lycan King cannot exist without his mate, and you cannot exist without me protecting you." Her chest tightened. "I don't want this. I don't even know you." His gaze softened, just slightly, revealing something buried beneath the power and command. "Neither did I," he admitted, but you are the first in centuries who has drawn me willingly, or perhaps unknowingly. There is no turning back now, Lyria. You are mine." She swallowed. Hard, panic rising. I don't even know what happens next." Kaelin's expression hardened, but not cruelly. "Tonight, you will learn, and you will survive. That is all you need to know for now." The full moon reached its apex, bathing the clearing in silver fire. Kaelin lowered his head slightly, and a strange warmth washed over her. Lyria realized that she could hear the heartbeat of the forest, the pulse of the earth beneath her feet, and even her own heart pounding in sync with his. "The bond will strengthen," he whispered, voice nearly a growl. "With every sunrise, every moonrise, you will feel it. I will teach you, protect you, claim you, until you cannot remember what it was like to live without me." Lyria's knees gave way, and Kaelin caught her effortlessly. She could feel the power coursing through him, through her, tethering her in a way that scared her and ignited something primal within. "I don't know if I can do this," she confessed, her voice trembling. "You will," he said simply, "because you already are." And in that moment, as the wind tore through the trees and the full moon shone brighter than ever, Lyria realized that her ordinary life had ended. She had stepped into the forest seeking safety, and instead, she had found her fate, claimed not by force, but by the inevitability of the Lycan King who had chosen her. Her world had shifted forever, and Kaelin, the king of creatures she had only believed existed in nightmares and whispered tales, was now hers in every sense that mattered. Lyria woke to the sound of running water. For a moment, panic surged through her. Memories of the forest, the glowing eyes, the voice that had claimed her beneath the full moon crashing back all at once. She jolted upright, breath shallow, heart racing. She was not in her village. The room was vast, carved from stone and timber, lit by firelight that flickered along walls etched with ancient symbols. The bed beneath her was layered with thick furs, warm and impossibly soft. She inhaled sharply. The scent hit her all at once. Pine, smoke, something wild and unmistakably male. "Kaelin, you're awake." His voice came from the shadows. Lyria turned, finding him seated near the hearth, massive form relaxed but alert. He looked different here, less like a creature of the forest and more like a king. Leather armor molded to his frame, silver markings tracing his wrists and collarbone, his golden eyes watching her with quiet intensity. "Where am I?" she demanded. "My stronghold," Kaelin replied. "You crossed into Lycan territory the moment the bond activated. I brought you here before your body could reject the change." Her stomach twisted. "Change?" He rose and crossed the room in a few long strides, stopping several paces away, close enough that she felt the heat of him, but not so close that it felt like a threat. "You slept through the first surge," he said. "That's rare." "What surge?" she whispered. Kaelin studied her carefully. "The bond awakening." "Your blood." She swung her legs off the bed, standing unsteadily. The floor felt different beneath her feet, solid, yet alive. "I feel strange," she admitted. "Everything's louder, brighter. I can hear the fire crackling like it's right inside my head." Kaelin nodded. "Your senses are sharpening. Lycan blood does not wake gently." She stared at him. "You said I had Lycan blood. That can't be true. My family were healers. Humans were," he corrected. "Once, long ago." He moved closer now, slow and deliberate. "Your lineage was hidden for a reason. Lycans who did not wish to be bound to pacts, to kings, to wars. They diluted their blood, lived among humans, and forgot what they were." Her chest tightened. "And you just remembered for me?" "No," he said quietly. "The bond did." A sharp ache flared in her chest, sudden and intense. Lyria gasped, clutching her sternum as heat spread outward, curling through her veins like fire. Kaelin was beside her instantly, gripping her shoulders. "Breathe, fight it, and it will hurt more." "I didn't agree to this," she cried. "No," he said, voice steady, but edged with something raw. but neither did I choose the timing. The bond is ancient. It claims what belongs to it. Her knees buckled. Kalen caught her, lowering her back onto the bed. His hands were warm, grounding, and against her will the pain eased under his touch. Her eyes snapped to his. "You're doing this. I'm helping you survive it," he corrected. When the pain finally Lyria lay there trembling, exhausted and furious. "You took me," she said. "You didn't ask. You didn't explain." Kalen straightened, expression hardening. "If I had asked, you would have said no." "Yes," she snapped, "because I deserve a choice." His jaw clenched. "And if I had left you in the village, the bond would have torn you apart within days, untrained, unprotected, dead." Silence fell heavy between them. Lycans who awaken without guidance lose control, he continued more quietly. They draw attention. Hunters, enemies, my enemies. Her pulse spiked. Enemies? Kalen's eyes darkened. "Those who would kill you to weaken me." She turned away, hugging herself. "So I'm a liability?" "No," he said sharply. "You are my greatest strength, which makes you their greatest target." That did not comfort her. Later, Kalen led her through the stronghold. Massive halls carved into the mountainside, warriors bowing as he passed, their eyes flicking to her with curiosity and something like reverence. "She's human," one whispered. "No," another replied. "She's his." The words made her skin prickle. Kalen leaned close. "Ignore them. They're bound to respect you." "I didn't ask for that either," she muttered. He almost smiled. Training began that afternoon. Not combat. Control. Kalen taught her how to ground herself, how to listen to the bond without letting it overwhelm her, how to recognize his presence in her mind, not as a voice, but as a constant pull, a steady anchor. "Why?" "I'll feel me when you're afraid," he said. "When you're in danger." "And you'll feel me?" she asked. "Always," he replied. The certainty in his voice unsettled her more than any threat. That night, the bond flared again. Lyria woke with a gasp, heat flooding her veins, instincts screaming. She stumbled from her bed and nearly collided with Kalen, who was already there. "You felt it too," she breathed. "Yes." The air between them vibrated with tension, fear, confusion, something deeper and far more dangerous. "This doesn't mean I accept this," she said.
"I know," he replied. "Acceptance comes later." She looked up at him.
"And if it never comes?" His gaze softened, just a fraction. "Then I will wait, but the bond will not." Outside, a distant howl echoed through the mountains. The pack was restless, and somewhere beyond the stronghold, forces older than either of them had begun to stir. Drawn by the awakening of a mate the Lycan King had waited lifetimes to claim. The howl had not been a warning, it was a declaration. Enemies were on the move. Kalen's golden eyes snapped open as the ground trembled faintly beneath the stronghold. Lyria stirred beside him, the bond tugging at her, urging alertness. She sat upright, pulse racing. "What is it?" she asked. Kalen rose silently, every muscle coiled like a spring. "Hunters. Or rivals," he said. "They know you exist now." Lyria's stomach tightened. "Me? I haven't done anything." "No," he said softly, but with steel in his voice. "But being my mate makes you more than human, dangerous, powerful, and wanted." The bond flared between them, a subtle hum at first, then a surge of warmth and clarity. She could feel him, and not just him. She could feel the pack, the stronghold, the pulse of the forest around them. Her senses sharpened, fear sharpening into instinct. Kalen's hand brushed hers. "You'll need control. I don't even know how to use this," she whispered, voice trembling. "You'll learn," he said, "or you will die trying." The first attack came at dusk. Shadows moved through the trees faster than the eye could follow. Arrows thudded into the walls, sparks flying as some struck the stone. Lyria froze, caught between terror and fascination. "Move," Kalen commanded. She obeyed instinctively, ducking behind a pillar as he shifted, body twisting and elongating, fur erupting along his arms and back. Within moments, he had become something more than human, muscle, fang, claw, a predator of myth come to life. Lyria gasped. You're alive," he said simply, "and dangerous. Learn it or you'll be nothing." He leapt forward into the fray. Lyria's heart pounded as she watched him dispatch attackers with brutal precision. And yet, she felt the bond pull tighter, whispering strength into her, igniting a spark of her own latent power. Kalen returned moments later, dripping blood, eyes flashing gold, but alive. "You felt it," he said. "Yes," she admitted. Her pulse had slowed, adrenaline fading, but the bond kept a low hum in her chest. I think I could have helped." He studied her, expression unreadable. "You will, soon, but now, you must survive. The pack cannot do it all. You are my mate, Lyria. That is both shield and target. Never forget that." I don't know if I can." "You can," he interrupted, voice low but commanding. "Because we are linked. Our strength is shared. Our fears are shared. Our enemies will learn that." Training intensified after that night. Kalen guided her through the bond's intricacies. How to call forth strength without losing herself. How to read danger instinctively. How to feel the pack's heartbeat as an extension of her own. Every lesson left her exhausted but exhilarated. She began to understand the pull she felt, the tether that made him part of her very soul. And yet with understanding came frustration. "I don't want to be your weapon," she said one evening, chest heaving after a sparring session. Sweat clung to her hair, and her eyes blazed with defiance. "You are not my weapon," he said softly, stepping closer. "You are my mate, and mates are never tools. They are partners." Her hands shook. "I didn't choose this. You—" "I know," he interrupted, lifting a hand to her cheek. "Neither did I. But the bond chooses not us." The touch sent fire through her veins, the bond flaring as if in agreement. She gasped, stepping back, confused by her own reaction. "You will learn to accept it," he murmured, "or it will consume you. The next threat came from within. Not from rivals or hunters, but from the pack itself." Some of the younger males had begun to resent her presence. Human, untrained, yet mysteriously powerful. Whispers followed her through the halls. Eyes lingered longer than they should. One night she was confronted in the training yard. "You think you belong here?" one growled. "The king doesn't need you. You are nothing." The bond reacted, fire flaring in her chest. She could feel Kalen's rage, his control, and it mingled with her own fear and fury. "You will not touch me," she said, voice trembling yet firm, and she didn't wait. Energy surged outward in a pulse of heat and force that sent the intruders stumbling back. Kalen appeared instantly, every movement smooth, protective. "Enough," he said. They backed away. "You cannot control her," one muttered. Kalen's eyes flared. "She is mine, always. Learn that or leave." The pack fell silent. Later, alone in the moonlit courtyard, Kalen approached her. "You are stronger than I imagined," he said softly, hand brushing hers again. "The bond is awakening you faster than any mate in centuries." Lyria shivered, unsure if it was the cool night air or the pull between them. "I don't know if I want this," she whispered. "You already have it," he said. "But that does not mean you will be lost. I will guide you, protect you, claim you fully, not as master, but as mate." Her heart raced. She wanted to resist, to run, to deny the pull she felt. And yet, deep within, a thrill of recognition, of connection, stirred. The bond flared again, subtly brushing her mind, entwining with her heartbeat. She felt him, not just him, but his strength, his will, his claim, and realized she could not ignore it. Not now, not ever. Beyond the stronghold, unseen eyes watched, Rivals, hunters, enemies long thought dormant. The Lycan King had a mate now, and the world would tremble at the union. But for the first time, Lyria no longer felt like prey. She felt like a queen. The night was darker than usual, as though the forest itself had pulled a cloak over the moon. Lyria stood at the edge of the stronghold, her chest tight with tension. Kaelin's presence was beside her, steady and commanding, but the bond pulsed through her with a rhythm that was both exhilarating and terrifying. "They're coming," Kaelin said, his voice low, carrying a weight that made her pulse quicken. Not just hunters, not just rivals, others, older enemies who have waited centuries for this moment. Lyria's hands clenched at her sides. "I don't even know if I can." "You can," he interrupted, his golden eyes meeting hers, glowing faintly in the moonlight. "Because the bond is stronger than you realize, and because we are linked, together, we are more than any enemy that dares approach." The wind shifted, carrying faint whispers, voices of the pack in the forest, harmonizing into a warning. Lyria inhaled sharply. She felt it now, the pull of the Lycan blood coursing through her veins, not dormant anymore, alive and insistent. "This is it," she murmured, "the first real test." Kaelin's gaze softened. "No. The first trial. And you will not be alone." The attack began with a scream that cut through the night like a blade. Shadows surged across the forest floor, moving with unnatural speed. Lyria's instincts flared immediately. She felt the bond tighten, tethering her to Kaelin, syncing their movements. He shifted beside her, his form blurring as fur erupted along his arms, his claws glinting in the faint moonlight. Every motion was predatory, controlled, powerful. "You can do this," he whispered, and the words ignited something deep within her. Lyria raised her arms instinctively, feeling the Lycan energy respond. A shield of pure force pulsed outward, throwing the first wave of attackers back into the trees. Her chest burned, and yet the sensation was intoxicating. Power, raw and alive, moving through her as naturally as her own heartbeat. Kaelin glanced at her, impressed but focused. "Control it, breathe through it, feel me." She did, and the world sharpened around her. Every sound, every scent, every flicker of movement became clear. She could hear the wolves in the forest, the pack moving to flank the enemies, their growls harmonizing with her rising heartbeat. She could see every shadow twisting unnaturally as her attackers approached, anticipate their movements, and counter with precision. By the time the first wave of foes reached the stronghold's walls, Lyria was ready. She struck with the bond guiding her, energy surging through her hands like fire. Arrows and blades shattered against the shields of force she conjured, each motion synchronized with Kaelin's attacks. Together they were unstoppable, two halves of a whole, moving with terrifying grace. One of the attackers, larger and more cunning than the rest, lunged at her from the shadows. Lyria barely had time to react, but the bond flared, pulling her into a defensive stance. She met the creature's strike, energy flaring as she repelled it, the force knocking both her and the attacker back several feet. Kaelin was beside her instantly, claws striking with deadly precision, tearing the threat apart before it could recover. He looked at her with a mixture of awe and pride. "You are stronger than I thought," he said. "I am stronger," she replied, breathless. "Because of you, because of us." The bond pulsed again, stronger this time, resonating through her very bones. She could feel Kaelin's heartbeat in her chest, the pack's rhythm in her ears, the forest's heartbeat beneath her feet. Power surged through her, and she realized that she had crossed a line from fear into mastery. The fight lasted hours, though it felt like moments. Shadows receded as the enemies fell back, routed by the combination of Kaelin's raw power and Lyria's awakened blood. By the time the dawn began to tint the horizon with silver, the forest was eerily silent. Lyria collapsed against the cold stone of the stronghold, shaking, exhausted, but alive. Kaelin knelt beside her, hands on her shoulders, grounding her. "You did it," he said softly. "You survived the trial. And more than that, you embraced it. I think I can control it now, she admitted. The bond, it doesn't scare me anymore. It feels like it's part of me. Kaelin smiled faintly, brushing a strand of damp hair from her face. It is part of you, and part of me. That is what being a mate means. Not just protection, but power shared, responsibility shared, life shared. She looked up at him, her chest still heaving, eyes wide. Life shared. Yes, he said, voice deepening, earnest. We are linked now, forever, not by force, but by choice, and by blood. The bond is eternal. It is the foundation of our survival and strength. A shiver ran down her spine. The thought was both terrifying and exhilarating. She was no longer just a girl from a small village. She was the mate of the Lycan King, awakened, fully bonded, and unbreakable. The bond was not just a tether, it was a warning. Kaelin rose, eyes scanning the horizon. They will return, he said, and next time they will bring more than just hunters. We will CE predators, who will test everything you have learned tonight. I can handle it, she said, more confidently than she felt. I've never felt this strong before. Good, he said, because being my mate is not just about survival. It is about commanding respect, commanding power, and commanding your own destiny. And tonight you proved that you are ready. The first rays of sunlight pierced through the trees, bathing them in gold. Lyria felt the bond pulse gently, steadily, a rhythm that promised connection, strength, and protection. She understood now that she and Kaelin were more than king and mate. They were partners in every sense, bound by blood, choice, and power. And as the forest around them stirred, sensing the change, Lyria knew one undeniable truth. Nothing, no enemy, no rival, no threat, could stand against them together. Not now, not ever. The dawn broke over the forest in a blaze of silver and gold, casting light on the stronghold and its new queen. Lyria stood atop the highest balcony, the wind tangling her hair, her chest rising and falling with calm determination. Kaelin appeared beside her, silent, his presence a steady anchor. This is it, he said, eyes scanning the horizon. The final reckoning. They will come for you, for me, for the bond we share. Lyria exhaled slowly. Then let them. I am ready now, not afraid, not uncertain. Kaelin's golden eyes softened. I am proud of you. Proud doesn't begin to cover it. You are stronger than any mate I have ever hoped for. She laughed softly, a mix of relief and incredulity. You claimed me before I had a choice. And now, I choose you. The bond flared briefly, warm and tangible, wrapping around them like an invisible chain. It was no longer a threat or a tether. It was power. It was promise. It was connection. By midday, the first wave of enemies appeared, figures emerging from the trees, shadows twisting unnaturally, eyes glinting with malice. But this time, Lyria did not hesitate. She felt the Lycan blood in her veins, alive and fierce. The bond pulsed through her chest, connecting her to Kaelin, to the pack, to the forest itself. You fight with me, Kaelin said, voice low, and together we will end this. I wouldn't fight without you, she replied. They leapt down from the balcony as one, moving in perfect synchronization. The attackers faltered at the sight of them. A human and a Lycan King, bonded, unstoppable. Lyria's hands glowed with energy, the power of her awakening now fully under her control. She struck with precision, repelling attackers with bursts of force that seemed impossible for a human. Kaelin tore through the shadows with raw power, claws flashing, fangs bared. Together they were unstoppable. But the true threat had yet to arrive. From the depths of the forest, figures emerged that were older, larger, and far more dangerous. These were Lycans bound by ancient grudges, rivals who had long envied Kaelin's reign, predators who had killed to challenge him. Kaelin growled, the bond reacting, amplifying his power. linking it to Lyria's. "This is the test of your strength," he said. "Stay with me. Trust the bond." Lyria nodded, heart steady. The bond pulsed, and she felt every step he took, every movement, every attack before it happened. Her instincts were no longer separate. They were one with his. As the enemies advanced, she unleashed her power fully, the energy surging outward, a shield of light and force that threw foes back. Kalen moved beside her, deadly and precise, every strike fueled by their shared connection. One of the ancient Lycans broke through the outer defenses, rushing toward Lyria. She met it head-on, the bond flaring, strength flowing through her. Her energy struck it, hurling the attacker back, shaking the ground. Kalen growled, closing the distance. Together they ended the threat in a flurry of synchronized movement. Hours passed in battle, yet Lyria did not tire. She had fully awakened, her Lycan blood tempered by Kalen's guidance, her bond with him acting as both shield and amplifier. She no longer felt fear. She no longer felt doubt. She was power incarnate, fully in control of the gift she had once thought a curse. When the last attacker fell, silence reclaimed the forest. The trees shivered in the wind, the pack stirred cautiously, and the stronghold itself seemed to breathe. Lyria sank to her knees, exhausted, and Kalen knelt beside her. "You did it," he said softly, hands brushing her hair. "You are my mate, and my equal." Lyria looked at him, chest heaving, sweat and blood streaked across her face, yet her eyes shining with newfound strength. "We did it," she whispered. "Together." Kalen's hand lifted to her cheek, thumb brushing lightly. "Together," he repeated. The bond pulsed one last time, steady and constant, a rhythm that promised life, power, and unity. Lyria felt it through her veins, through her soul, through every fiber of her being. She could feel Kalen's heartbeat in perfect harmony with her own, the pack surrounding them, the forest itself acknowledging them as one. "This is only the beginning," Kalen said, eyes scanning the horizon. "There will always be threats, always challenges, but we are ready for them now." Lyria nodded. "I am ready, not just because of power, but because of choice, because of us." The Lycan King lowered his head, brushing his forehead to hers. "I claimed you once without your knowledge, but now, you are mine by choice, by will, and by fate." She smiled, a warmth spreading through her chest. "And I claim you, fully, always." The bond flared gently, affirming their unity. No words were needed beyond that pulse of connection, the eternal promise between mates, unbreakable and unstoppable. Weeks later, the stronghold had transformed. Lyria moved freely among the pack, no longer a human outsider, but a queen in her own right. Her powers continued to grow, tempered by Kalen's guidance, strengthened by her own will. The pack had accepted her fully, the enemies who dared challenge them had been scattered, and the forest itself seemed to bend slightly to their combined strength. Kalen watched her often, pride and love etched across his face. "You are remarkable," he said one evening as they stood atop the balcony, watching the moon rise. "And you are terrifying," Lyria replied with a smile. "But in a good way," he chuckled, brushing her hair from her face. "We are terrifying together." She leaned against him, feeling the bond pulse steadily between them. "Together," she repeated. "Always." The Lycan King had claimed her once, but now she had claimed him as well, and the bond, once frightening and unpredictable, had become a source of strength, unity, and unbreakable love. The forest around them was calm, the pack secure, and the stronghold alive with the promise of centuries to come. Lyria's ordinary life was gone forever, but what had replaced it was far greater than she had ever imagined. Together, bonded by blood, choice, and destiny, they were unstoppable, and nothing, not hunters, rivals, or ancient grudges, would ever break them again. More stories will keep coming, so please don't forget to like and subscribe.